Hi, everybody. A parent question that I commonly get is how do I handle aggressive behavior? And what is aggressive behavior? That would be anything from screaming to hitting, throwing, kicking, biting, all of the above. That aggressive behavior could be toward you or it could be toward a sibling. Um, and it can be frightening. It can be overwhelming. It can be can be a trigger for some parents that might not be able to handle their own feelings of anger and how they deal with them. So it's important to have a plan. And my suggestions are based on years of experience and as a teacher, as a preschool teacher, as a childcare provider for 30 years, but also as a parent of three sons. And I've, experienced one or two or 300 moments of people having these moments of emotion that are and can be really intense. Um, so I thought it might be helpful. I had this question come up, and I thought it might be helpful for you to hear how I usually handle it. And I know this works because I've seen it work. That being said, it takes a lot of work to do, to put in place. But in my opinion, it's worth the effort. So, what I have come up with or have called how I do this is strategies for big feelings. It's okay to have the feeling that they're having. Um, Sometimes the idea parents might have is it's embarrassing to me that my kid is throwing a tantrum. So I need them to stop. And how do I get them to stop? Okay, I know this works. I'll give them something and they'll stop, and then I won't be embarrassed anymore if it's happening in a public place, for example. And yes, those kind of things do work. It's called bribery, and it's very successful. However, it isn't it isn't always going to work, um, and we want our children ultimately to be able to learn how to self calm, right? We want them to be able to handle frustrations that come down their life throughout their life, with an ability to make it through to the other side, not to look for someone to solve it for them or pacify it by giving them something that they want. So that's the type of behavior that we're trying to combat. Okay, so your strategies of bribery or deal making may work for the short term, but they won't work for the long term. So that's where I say the effort has to be made now for what comes down the road a while, okay? And it will help. The first and foremost thing to do, number one, is to set clear boundaries and expectations. And this means you and your partner, if you're a single parent, God bless you, and my hat is off. But so you, but if you and your partner, if you have a partner, are able to come up with a set of ground rules that work for your home. This is crucial. You together have to decide what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate within your home. Okay, so at Helping Hands, for example, I'm the director and I have staff, teachers that work for me, and we sit down and we talk about what we will tolerate and what we won't tolerate. Now, every teacher has a different ceiling, a different level of what they will tolerate. Every person does. Grandparents have a very different one than you as a parent do, and you probably already have learned that. You think to yourself, why are they being so lenient? When I was a kid, they never would have let me get away with that. But the grandkid, oh yeah, yeah. Well, their ceiling has shifted, right, over time, and yours will too. But right now, you have a ceiling that's this high. Your partner has a ceiling that's this high, or maybe it's this high, or maybe it's this high. But together, the two of you have to figure out where your common ground is, what you will tolerate and what you will not. Okay? Once you figure that out, you need to let your kids know. And not when the thing is happening, not when the aggressive behavior is happening or the tantrum is happening, but beforehand. As a family, say these kind of things in your general daily life. Say, in our family, we, okay? Or in our home, we talk to one another when we're upset. In our family, we give hugs before we go to bed. Whatever you might do as a family, okay? In our home on Saturday morning, we stay in our pajamas all day and watch cartoons. I don't know. Whatever you do as a family, okay? Set a precedent for what you create, that language. In our family, we, okay? Or in our home, we. Okay, because you have no control over once they get out that door and where they go and who they're with. As they're older, you have very little control over those environments, and so you're going to want to have that language when they're very little because it'll help you all the way through. Okay, so in our family, that is set ahead. That's the very, very first thing. So if in your family you handle settling arguments between each other, you would like it to be settled with compassion, language, as opposed to using your fists and screaming at one another, aggressive behavior. That's the undesired behavior. You need to set that emotion right at the get-go. So you can stage an argument between you and your spouse, and you can, together, you can plan this out ahead of time, and you can say, I don't like it when you, blah, 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 and I don't like it when you, and then say, we're arguing, I'm angry, this is me angry. You can demonstrate that in front of your child, within earshot, right? They can hear you, they might be playing over there, not looking at you, but they can hear this all happening. And through osmosis and a little eavesdropping, they are hearing how it is handled. So your spouse can say, I'm angry, I feel angry when you da-da-da-da. Take my favorite coffee cup. I don't know. Just think of something. And then the other person can say, well, in our family, when we're angry, we talk it out. You can be angry, but you may not yell at me. I don't like to be yelled at. And then the other person can come back and say, oh, I forgot. In our house, we don't yell at each other when we're angry. We have to work that out and then talk to the person. And then go on from there. It can be a really short little snippet that your child's overhearing, and it's enough to set a stage in place, okay? So the next time they are losing their temper and being aggressive with you, then you can remind them of that set ground rule, okay? So that's the number one thing, is to set boundaries. The number two thing is, okay, moved on. Life is happening. Your kiddo is frustrated, a true feeling that we all experience, right? And the very first thing you need to do is not ignore it. So you can't ignore, you need to acknowledge their feeling, okay? Even if you don't understand what they're frustrated about, you know your child and you can tell they're frustrated. So it's good to name the emotion that they're expressing, even if they're nonverbal, okay? If they're a child who's not yet of age, talking age, you can give them those words. You can say, I can tell by your face that you're frustrated. You wanted that to go in there and it doesn't fit, and that makes you grumpy. And I can tell you're really upset about that. You're acknowledging them and you're showing them that you're on their side. Okay? And as they get older, if the conflict is between them and a sibling or a friend, you could say, I can hear what I'm hearing your sister say, and I don't know if you're listening, but I want us all to have our listening ears on and pay attention to each other. She's expressing to you that she's frustrated that you took her whatever, right, her toy. And I hear her saying that to you. Can you take a moment and listen and listen to what your sister has to say? So you're acknowledging, you're naming, and you're also saying you get it, you understand it, and you're validating for them that it's okay for them to have these big feelings. You're also setting a stage that they're in control of how they respond to those big feelings. So, time out for just a minute. It's really important that we as adults recognize that there's a difference between having a tantrum and having a complete meltdown, okay? These are two very different things. A lot of people will say, oh, he's throwing a fit when he's having a meltdown or she's having a meltdown. Tantruming is a response. It's a choice, okay? When a child's having a tantrum, you just said, no, you can't have any more cookies. And they go, I want more cookies. It's unfair. And they throw a little fit, or they have a tantrum. They bang their fists. They kick their feet. They give you mean looks. They're mad at you, right? That's something we've all seen. Over here, the total meltdown, that is a reaction. So we have a tantrum as a response, a meltdown as a reaction. This one, they can't control, okay? Their brain hasn't developed far enough yet that they are able to rein in those big feelings successfully all by themselves because we want them to, and not express them. They have to go through it. It's like that book, the bear book, can't go over it, can't go under it, gotta go through it. That's how some children are reacting when they hear the word no or hear that they can't do the thing they want to do. They have to go through that moment of big emotion. Very few kids are over here just tantruming like, oh, poor me, I wish I could have that, but they don't want me to have it, so I guess I'll throw a tantrum and show them I'm mad. That takes a lot of calculating on their part, and basically a child under 5 very rarely can do that, okay? They're usually responding emotionally, not reacting and choosing to be naughty, okay? It's hard to understand that distinction and difference because we can see how brilliant our children are, and we think that they are, in fact, plotting. And I know that it does feel that way sometimes, but more often than not, they're just responding, okay? You'll be able to discern the difference as you go along in this whole parenting gig. But it's tricky, and I recognize that. I can help you with that if you need me to. Feel free to ask questions. So we want to set clear boundaries. We want to acknowledge and validate, and in that, allow those feelings, name those feelings, okay? And then we're going to come back to the first one, and we're going to remind them of what the boundaries are in our home, in our family, okay? So if your child is having that meltdown, there is a span of time where it feels like unreachable. And that's okay. They need time to have that. But it won't last all day, and they won't be doing that when they're graduating high school, I promise. Okay? I know it seems like it's forever. A good thing to do would be to look at your watch or clock and actually see how long it is, because it feels a lot more longer than it actually generally is taking. Okay? And what you as the adult have to do is you have to meet that chaos and that great big feeling and emotion, that spaz out moment, with calm. Okay? Because if you meet it with the same kind of energy, it will keep going and going and going. And an end is far off in the distance. But if you can stay calm, count to 10, do some breathing techniques, whatever you need to do, flip through a catalog or a magazine to distract yourself from how annoyed you are that your child is doing this for the 4th time today. Whatever you need to do to stay calm while they're going through that big emotion, do it. Okay? I can't stress that enough. Because if you meet the chaos with chaos, it's like gasoline on fire, and just is gonna exasperate the situation. So your child is melting down, and they're over here having that big feeling. If you can, in your calmness, repeat the mantra: in our home, we do not kick when we're angry. In our home, we do not hit. I will not let you hit. Because they're going to attack you, generally. I mean, truth be told. You can say, how about you sit on my lap and have them face their arms and legs facing away from you, and just hold their belly and say, I'm right here. I will be here when you're done having this big feeling, and we can talk about it. But if that's a trigger for you, if them thrashing and losing control on your physical body is a trigger for you, then don't hold them. Have them be on the other side of a baby gate. Have them go in a playpen. Have your, tag out your partner and say, I can't physically hold them. So we need to figure something out, okay? And make a plan in place before this all happens. Remember, that conversation happens way before, where you're setting those clear boundaries. And you'll learn what your triggers are from each other and how high your ceilings are for what you will and will not tolerate. And just be honest about that with your child. I will not tolerate you hitting me. I don't hit you, and I will not allow you to hit me. It's my job to keep everyone here safe, and it is not safe for you to hit other people. I won't let you hit your sister or hit your father or whatever it might be. And this can sometimes feel like it's backfiring, because you'll say, I won't let you do this. And that is like, you won't let me? Well, just watch. I'm going to do it anyway, right? Or they'll say something like, I think it's funny, or it doesn't hurt me when he hits me, or they'll say something kind of sassy like that back to you, which for me, that back talk is like, it's a trigger for me personally. So I have to work on my wording really well, and I have to also remind myself that when a child says something like, it doesn't hurt me, or I don't care about it, I don't like it, it doesn't matter, that they're deflecting. They're trying to get out of the attention that's been put on them and move past the uncomfortable feelings, and they don't really mean that they like it when somebody hits them. Nobody likes to get hit. So I call that turn off the spotlight. If you're like, in our house, we don't hit, and I won't let you hit. You're shining a spotlight right on the kid that just hit their brother, right? And they're like, I don't want all this negative attention, but I can't calm down. How do you get out of that? How do you talk to the ceiling, okay? As silly as that sounds, you can just talk to the ceiling. You can tell the ceiling, oh my goodness, it feels like we're all forgetting that in this house we don't hit one another, and hitting hurts. So I really hope people can start to remember your child will see that the eye contact is not on them, and they will start to calm down a little bit. It's really interesting when this happens. It's really crucial to not engage, okay? Because if your child says, "You're a poo-poo head," and "I like it when you're yelling," or "I like to yell," and you start to engage in that kind of conversation, you've lost. I mean, there was a comedian once that said, when you find yourself like arguing yes no with a 3-year-old, it's really clear who the loser is. And it's you, the adult, because they're doing anything they can. They're like scrambling to stay afloat in this argument or battle of wills, and when you meet them there, it's really counterproductive. So try to remind yourself of these things the next time this happens, and don't engage. So another way to do that is with role playing. We do this in Helping Hands all the time, and it works. We just take 2 little peg dolls or 2 puppets, 2 stuffed animals, whatever, and we play adjacent to. Okay, so sometimes we'll do it at circle if it's a big group message that we want to get across, right? Occasionally, when the would-be kindergartner, soon-to-be kindergartners, socially, they start to do a little mean play on the playground where they're like, "I'm not going to invite her to my birthday," and they do that kind of thing, and it can get really nasty, and it can hurt people's feelings a lot, and I have no tolerance for it. I don't tolerate mean girl or mean child behavior. So I will call a meeting right there on the playground and say, "You know what, this is important for all of us to hear." So you're not singling out one person, right? In your home, you're not going to call a meeting you could if you have a big family and it works for you to call a meeting, but usually doesn't. And especially if you only have one child, then you kind of feel silly. So another way to do that is with puppets or dolls or action figures, whatever you have, and have them behave the way that you've just witnessed your child behaving. So displaying the undesired behavior, the kicking or the hitting or the pulling or the screaming or that kind of thing. And then have another force or yourself, another doll or yourself, work through it with them, how you hope it could be remedied without all of that. You are not engaging them in this play. You are doing this adjacent to them. The no spotlight shining on the child, okay? And this isn't happening when you've just had this meltdown. This is happening at another time, the next day, a few days later, so you can talk about it without it being so raw and excitable. Anyway, so you're going to talk about strategies for those big feelings, okay? And it helps to draw them out. It helps to, go on Google and find some pictures of children doing these things and print them out. At Helping Hands, we have them on little cards that are in a little box, and we call that Strategies for Big Feelings. And we share with the children ahead of the big meltdown all the different strategies and how to do them. And then when the meltdown happens and the child is finding their calm, that's what I call it, finding your calm, you as the adult can pull out 1 or 2 or 3 of these strategy cards that work for your child, put them right down on the floor and say, "Okay, you've had your meltdown. I did some yelling, you did some yelling, we're going to move on, and we need to practice one of these 3 things. So which one would you like to choose?" power back in their hands, control. That's what they're looking for. So you say to them, would you like to give each other a hug? That might help. Would you like to count to 10 together? Would you like to blow a pinwheel? Take some deep breaths, pretend to smell a flower, and blow out a candle. Let's do that again. Smell a flower and blow out a candle. Over and over again, practice these things together at a calm time. So when your child does have the meltdown, you can pull that. You've got a whole Rolodex of things that you can pull right out. Rolodex, oh my gosh, I'm dating myself. But you know what I mean, okay? So you have an arsenal. You have tools at your disposal for you to use to meet the need, okay? Because everybody has these feelings. Every person on this planet has these big feelings. And for some people, even as adults, those feelings are still enormous, right? And for others, they've learned how to find calm and how to manage those emotions. Your children aren't born knowing this. They need you to teach them. They can't come up with these ideas all on their own. They're not emotionally sophisticated enough, okay? As they get older and they have more life experiences and they go out into schools and dance class, karate class, or whatever it might be, camp, summer camp, they are going to interact with more and more people that are going to show them different ways to respond to those big feelings. And some of them may not be healthy, okay? And some of them may not be ones that you want in your home. So you've got to start when they're little, setting a precedent, saying what you will tolerate, what is the way you do it in your home from the very beginning, so it can be a reference, it can be a compass for them when they go off in the world. And they say to themselves, wow, this is not how we do it at our house. I wonder why. Maybe they don't know this, and they can come back, and they will. They'll come back to you and they'll talk to you and they'll say, at so-and-so's house, they yell a lot, and, or they hit their dog, or, you're going to hear a whole bunch of things that come back. And it's going to be really hard for you to not say, they shouldn't do that. That's wrong. You might feel that way, but as a preschool teacher, there are things that my students have said to me over the years that I've thought to myself, I wonder if that is really how it's dealt with at home. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It's how it's dealt with here and now, right? So at Helping Hands, I have the luxury of saying, well, at school, this is the way we da-da-da-da-da. And at home, you might do it this way. I can't pass judgment on my students and their families because they do it differently than we do it, right? And you won't be able to, you could, but it might alienate you and make distance for your child socially. So it's helpful to just come at it from the place of in our house, in our family, we do this. And I say, at Helping Hands, in our classroom, we do this. Because we want our kids to be able to tell us things that we might not want to hear, but we want to be that person for them. We want home to be the compass and our family to be the base, so that they can leave us and go out into the world and handle any situation in a healthy way, right? I hope this helps. I will do another video because this is a really long one. I'm looking at the clock. And I will talk a little bit more about those strategies for you so you can have your own box of things that you could do when the need arises. The bottom line is you're doing the best you can with the tools you have. Don't forget that, okay? You're doing the best you can, and your best is good enough. Trust me. I'm really, really glad that you spent this time listening to me talk about how I do things. I'm not saying it's the only way or the right way and another way is wrong. I'm just letting you know one way to do it. And I hope it helps. Thanks, guys.